Thank you, Jerilyn, for the opportunity to be here and speak about Ibo. When we lost Ibo Balton, it was really devastating for all of us who knew him and worked with him over the years, because Ibo was such a unique individual and had such an amazing impact through the work that he did his many years at HPD. Ibo cared so deeply about the neighborhoods that he spent his professional career trying to improve. He had great respect for the work that he did and working with the communities and the members of the communities that he served. He was really, truly gifted at translating the voices and the dreams of the members of the communities that he worked with into actual, real, impactful projects and improvements in those communities, and very skilled at dedicating resources to those neighborhoods that were often the most devastated in our city. All of us involved in the award would like Ibo's memory to be an inspiration for the next generation of those involved in housing and community development. For me personally, Ibo was one of the first people that I met when I started work at HPD, and he truly was a mentor and someone who helped to guide me in my career, and I still think about him very frequently in all the work that I do, and hope that what I do in some way is a testament to what I learned from him. So we try with this award to remember Ibo by presenting it to someone who exemplifies the ideas that Ibo held so dear, including a devotion to improving neighborhoods, to remembering how public service can directly affect the real world for the better, and to defining your own success not by your title or the size of your office, but by how much what you do day in and day out affects the people that you're serving.
And so based on the definition that Chris just talked about, it's hard for us to imagine a better candidate than Bill Carbine, who's HPD's Assistant Commissioner for Neighborhood Preservation. Bill started at HPD in the Clinton Neighborhood Preservation Office when even getting there was scary. He's been behind so many of the most important advances of our neighborhoods that have come out of HPD's planning, policy, development, and enforcement areas. And of course, when Hurricane Sandy struck, Bill and his team were there on the ground, helping owners and tenants to get the help that they needed. And I must admit that Bill is a dear friend. And because of that, when his name was put in nomination for this award, I actually argued against it because I knew that Bill would not like to have the spotlight turned on him. But I was happily overruled. Bill really is someone who exemplifies the ideals that Ibo held so dear. And I am deeply honored on behalf of our board to present the Ibo Balton Community Planner Award to Bill Carbine.
It's a little bit overwhelming for me. Thanks, Jerilyn. Thanks, CHPC. Thanks, HPD. I'm not going to thank my colleagues and friends individually because I'm sure I'll forget somebody and I don't want to offend anybody, but you know who you are and you know that I love you. I also would like to apologize. I had started to write some comments this weekend, and on Easter Sunday, my grandmother passed away. And we just buried her yesterday afternoon. So, I didn't complete writing those comments. But if you will indulge me a little bit, I would like to say a few words about her. So, Cecilia Josephine Tyson was born on October 31st in 1912 on Jerome Street in East New York to Swiss immigrants. That's right, Swiss immigrants in East New York. At that time, there were so many Swiss. One of the family stories was that we had a great uncle that, whom they wouldn't let into the Swiss clubs because he had been born in France while traveling. So, my grandmother grew up there, and as often happens with children of immigrants, she, moved away. And as also might be expected for someone who had a 100-year journey, she ran into some problems along the way and some difficulties, which we would all be familiar with. She used to write the address on old pictures all the time for some reason. It must be a Swiss thing. And when I was a young boy, I remember I'd say, Grandma, why are all these addresses different? She said, well, when we couldn't pay the rent, we got evicted. As a matter of fact, at one point, my grandmother and her family were homeless, and they lived in a warehouse that was owned by the company that she worked for a while. In later years, she was lucky enough to benefit from a Section 8 voucher as an old woman and make things a little bit more comfortable. Also along the way, the house that she grew up in, which was built by my great-grandfather, came into HPD hands through the in rem procedure. And for years, you know, we did house people. They were often homeless people. There's 1 or 2 units. At one point, HPD did demolish the building. Now, Vito, I know that's not your fault. That's DOP's decision. So, you know, I forgive you for that. And so also, as an adult, I frequently said to my grandmother, you know, you want to go see East New York again? I'll take you there. She never wanted to go. But about 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember exactly when, she called me and she said, Billy, will you still take me back to East New York? So I said, of course. The house was still up then, so we went to Jerome Street, and we sat in front of it. She didn't say much, she just laughed. Sat there for about an hour. We went around, we saw the park, we saw where the Borden plant used to be, where she used to get milk in pails. We went to St. Michael's Church down the block where she went to school. It's a beautiful church. If you're on Jerome Street, you should go in. At the time, there was still a Swiss parishioner there. And then when we were done, I said, Grandma, do you want to see the neighborhood? Do you see what your grandson does for a living, what we do? She said, okay. So we drove around, and I showed her some of the new construction and rehab, and she particularly noticed the families working in the yard and working on the houses. Afterwards, we went to her favorite restaurant in Glendale, which was Zum Stammtisch, German restaurant, obviously. And we went in there, and like a good Brooklyn girl, she was talking to everybody, and she was telling everyone that her grandson was so wonderful. He took her around and took her back to East New York. And so the people said, well, that must have been really sad. I mean, East New York, everybody knows East New York. And she said, no, it wasn't. She said, you know, he works for the city, and he showed me all the stuff that they're doing, and the people are so proud, and they're working on their homes. It was very wonderful, and I'm very happy about how East New York is now. So a few months later, it was back around the time of the peak of the foreclosure crisis, and HB sent me out alone on a February night to a meeting, which happened to be about 3 blocks from there, where she grew up. And the crowd was hostile. They were angry and they were hostile. It was at the worst part of the foreclosure crisis, and you know, I was there from HPD. And so when it was my turn to talk, I didn't quite know what to do, so I told the same story about bringing my grandmother just recently back to the neighborhood and how happy she was and how hopeful she was. So when I told that story, the mood completely changed. And when it was over, the people lined up to ask me for my grandmother's name, to pray for her in a church, and they wanted to know more about her. The bureaucrat had become a boy from the neighborhood, one of them. This is what New York neighborhoods are about. There are thousands of surprising stories intertwined in unexpected ways. This is why we do what we do. This is what gives us the energy and the motivation to go out every day and to fight to keep these neighborhoods. So I thank all of you. I thank New York. And we'll keep doing the same thing.